Welcome to Conservative Talk.
And we have a very special show this week. RIP to Roe v. Wade. And we have a
Absolutely.
special guest. Emily Matson is going to come on and talk to us about that.
Mhm.
We also want to know about the who, what, when, where, and why someone leaked the issue from the Supreme Court to talk about Roe v. Wade.
Mhm.
And so then we're going to go down the rabbit hole. And, that's one of my favorite topics. We're going to go down the rabbit hole and talk about and see if ghost peppers are the reason why all these processing plants are, catching on fire.
The answer to that may surprise you, so you might want to stick around to that one. Welcome back to Conservative Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as always, we like to ask that you like and share all of the content that you see that we produce and put out there, as well as subscribe to all of our social media platforms and pages. And I'm putting up our website right now. And if you're able to, please go to our website, conservativestalk.org, and hit the sponsor tab in the top right-hand corner and help us out with being able to produce more of this content and be able to spread it around, share it as much as possible. Every little bit goes a long way. And it's really the lifeline of what keeps us going here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as a reminder, as we always do, we want to remind you that it's 17 days until the Republican primary and 187 days until we beat Stacey Abrams again.
We've got to get the drum roll sound effect in for that because that's too good. I like that one. I like that.
You like that little ad-lib?
Yeah, we've got to bring that one in. So now we want to run in and start and kind of introduce you to our special guest. So our special guest, as he mentioned earlier, is Emily Matson. Emily Matson is the chairman of the board for Georgia Life Alliance, and Georgia Life Alliance is an organization that is pushing for the cultural change towards choosing life over the murder of innocent babies in the womb. And Emily is also a locally based attorney here in Rome, Georgia, and she's also a wife and mother of three kids. So she has experience at literally every aspect of what we're wanting to cover.
Very great person. We've gotten to know her over the years and work with her on a couple other things. And what she does, as well as Georgia Life Alliance, is truly amazing. So we want to welcome Emily.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Emily, go ahead and say welcome aboard Conservative Talk. Emily, welcome to Conservative Talk.
Hi.
So
fresh from the baseball field for 6 and under baseball.
There we go. So true mother through and through.
Absolutely.
So Emily, you being chairman of Georgia Life Alliance, I know you have a unique perspective and an understanding of the big topic, and quite frankly, one of the largest driving controversial things that's come out in recent memory, in all honesty, the leaking of a U.S. Supreme Court draft opinion that has never been done in the history of the court before. And it ultimately overturns one of the most controversial held constitutional beliefs or constitutional rights, or one of the wrongfully decided constitutional rights out there. So can you give us your thoughts on what let's go ahead and start at the top of what Roe v. Wade was and what it did.
Well, certainly, I will never, ever, ever forget the first day I sat in a government class at Berry College, and we were talking about constitutional cases, seminal constitutional cases, everything to do with the issues of slavery to states' rights. And I remember talking about Roe versus Wade and the fact that the right that was found in Roe versus Wade for women to choose, that she could choose to terminate her unborn child, that it was found in the penumbras and emanations of the Constitution. And, I think I realized the world is a lot less black and white than I did when I was 19 years old. But I remember just saying, who are these goons, that decided this? And, I will just tell y'all, I'm curious. I've heard a lot of commentary, not to go forward, but I do want to go and jump into this, that,
Yes.
if you undo Roe versus Wade, which, and it's important. I mean, it's not undone today. I think we just, because this is, go back to the beginning of what you were talking about with the leak, and this is a horrible thing, and the law has not changed as we sit here today. Abortion doctors are not going to be prosecuted for, making their millions today, maybe in the soon future. But the leak itself is such a problem. But also this idea that this entire area of substantive due process, where we found other rights that weren't clearly identified in the Bill of Rights, and that the federal government, holds the power and control and protection over those things. And I mean, we're looking at the potential undoing of lots of things.
Yeah.
Some of which make people shiver in their boots, and others of which I think are hopeful in the idea that there could be control returned at statewide level, at the state level, away from the federal government. And for those who just want to talk about the intellectual aspect, not the emotional aspect, I mean, I think undoing Roe versus Wade does a great thing, where it goes back and says, Alito's beginnings of his opinion, hopefully, which will be part of the official opinion, talk about it just, you can't find the right to abortion anywhere in the Constitution or the time of the making of the Constitution. So long introductory statement there, but so that's my general thought. And of course, let's go back to the real hot button, which is, since 1973, 63 million human beings terminated under protection of law, and how insane that is. And, I don't think people realize, like, the right to abortion that we have in America is not international. Like there's only a few countries that give legal protection for what we do in the great American world, United States of America world. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think that, I think the other thing is that this whole issue, if all of a sudden, and I'm just going to talk about women because you guys can't.
I have no idea.
Fair enough.
But all of a sudden, if women have to reevaluate the wisdom of being sexually active outside of marriage, or sexually active without care because they can just go and abort a child if they become pregnant, women now have to rethink that. And frankly, y'all, I mean, I think there's a lot of cultural things that we need to be stopped in our tracks thinking about, whether it's, unplanned pregnancies. I mean, I'm a huge advocate. We want to talk about being a mother, about putting cell phones in our children's hands. All of these things that are normal, which are not TikTok. They're not having a good effect on our culture. So anyway, this is a huge cultural battle, and I don't mean to talk so much, but I get
no. This is
the reason
perfect.
why we got you on.
Justin saying this because I like to use TikTok every once in a while, and
sorry.
No, but going back to what you're saying, it kind of ties in, because there are some cultural things and some cultural norms that we have really they're first world problems that the rest of the world does not go through, and really just doesn't. I mean, why do we even do it anymore? It's not. It does nothing to grow a human being or society, only deteriorates it.
Absolutely. You're right about that, and that kind of rolls into a little bit about what we were wanting to discuss more, and kind of expand on a little bit more, because if this does end up overturning Roe v. Wade, and several states end up coming out and just flat out banning abortions across the spectrum, then there needs to be a cultural change, or a different cultural look at how we approach what I guess the unplanned pregnancy parts of it.
I mean, you just changed Atlanta
especially
altogether.
especially when it comes to adoption. I mean, that really needs to see a lot of reforms as well.
I'm a big advocate for, once we change, once we get through this, we need to really look at adoption and reforming adoption in Georgia. But Emily, I want to know, like, when, I'm counting my chickens before they hatch, but when this is overturned, where do you see the next steps for us here in Georgia? What would you like to see the next step for us be to continue to fight for the right for life?
Yeah. Well, I think we have to ask that question. And, there are, as y'all know, there's 70 plus pro-life pregnancy resource centers across our state.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about that. I want to bring that up because, about 4 or 5 years ago, Georgia Life Alliance did something unique. We didn't go to the Capitol to lobby to prohibit. I mean, we're always trying to restrict abortion, but our legislative agenda was not a negative thing. It was a positive thing. And that was to try to shift some of our state's medical care money into programs which supported our pregnancy resource centers. And I think over the past couple of years, it's been somewhere between $2 and $3 million a year of Georgia medical money has gone towards, it has been made available through a very protective grant to pregnancy resource centers. And we may say, well, okay, well, they're there. They are huge resources. There's, I think in the state of Georgia, if you want to go by the state's definition of abortion clinics, over time, there's been, between 5 and 10 throughout the state. But these 70 plus pregnancy resource centers are from the top of the state all the way to the bottom, all the way to the east, all the way to the west. And they provide as many resources to women facing unplanned pregnancy as the abortion providers throughout our state. And so I think that that's, frontline number one, because I don't think that just because Roe versus Wade is overturned, that the sexual practices of young people, primarily people ages between, 19 and 24, I think is the highest abortion, demographic. The overturning of Roe versus Wade is not going to immediately change their sexual practices. Mm-hmm. So if abortion is not available to them legally, then we need to be prepared to offer them something else. Now, I want to bring an interesting fact here. Everyone who's involved in this effort knows that the real problem we have today is that abortion now is being performed by chemical process. Yeah. So, and y'all know, our Georgia Life Alliance was involved in some legislation. Actually, our local state representative, Katie Dempsey, was carrying it in the House, and it was to roll back something that Biden's administration sneakily done during COVID, which was to allow the mailing of the abortion pill without a physician interview, without a physician exam. And so during COVID, that's just one of the, the heartbreaks of the effect of COVID upon policy. And so in Georgia, we were trying to kind of make it clear at the state level, like, listen, we're not okay. We're not going to allow the mailing of the abortion pill. But that highlights this issue, which is the fact that women have been told yet another lie, which is that the easiest way to get abortion is to just go in and get this prescription. You go home and you can get it from your doctor. And you don't have to undergo the embarrassment of going to the, the Blase concrete building with protesters in Atlanta to get your abortion. And what women don't know is that the process of that chemical abortion is, I would think, based upon having used some of those chemicals for induction of pregnancy, similar medications, is terrible. I mean, women are experiencing labor of the fetal body or the fetal tissue on their own at home, being told this is a chemical abortion. Oh my God. So, but the thing about chemical abortion is that it's this lie and this deception. And we've tracked numbers of abortion through the years as surgical. Now we have prescription abortion essentially. And we can't track it. And we believe that there are more abortions occurring because of this deceptive lie. It's like, and this is a terrible example, but it's like, now that pornography is available on the internet, people don't have to go to the store to buy it, right? Mm-hmm. So you and I both know more people are buying pornography and consuming it than when you had to actually go out and physically purchase it. And so the same thing with abortion. And so, so what does the landscape look like? Well, if Roe versus Wade is overturned, we have it's not just policing, like I said, the Blase concrete buildings in Savannah or Augusta or Athens or inner city Atlanta. It's trying to figure out who is still prescribing chemical abortions, and HIPAA blanketly protects those. So how do you enforce that? So, I mean, I think I just want to tell you, I had a conversation a couple years ago with a pro-life OBGYN who's a friend of mine and a female, wonderful person, loves Jesus, absolutely believes that that is an unborn child in the womb and would never perform an abortion. Okay. But she said, this is complicated. And there are a lot of doctors who are neutral on the morals of it, who are very, very nervous about the gate just being wide open to being prosecuted, because there's something called a spontaneous abortion. There's DNCs, which are used to clean the uterus of fetal tissue, which is exactly, very similar to what happens in an abortion. And so you've got a medical community, to go back to, and I'm answering the question, like, what do we do if Roe versus Wade is overturned?
Mm-hmm.
We have a medical community that we respect and that we care about, and that we've got to hear from about what does it look like to enforce a law which prohibits the voluntary termination of a healthy pregnancy. And so that's, Georgia, I mean, I'm just going to tell you, Georgia Life Alliance has a lot of medical friends, and we're going to be looking at that very closely. Of course, we listen to National Rights Life, Americans United for Life, Susan B. Anthony, all these super smart people in Washington who do this all the time. But I think we can't just rush to the race line and say we're off, because, I think that the land is clear that we do not want it to be legal for unborn children's lives to be terminated and some messed up physician to get paid for it. I mean, we're clear about that, but what do we do legally?
Yeah.
And
Correct.
I take my Georgia Life Alliance hat on. I put my litigation attorney hat on, Georgia Life Alliance hat off, and litigation attorney hat on. And I want to see well-crafted law, which actually is effective and will go straight to the heart of this issue.
Absolutely.
So
I like that. Go ahead.
I 100% agree with you, because this is a very complex situation and issue. And the one thing that we have to protect the unborn, we also have to protect the mother. And with that becomes protecting, the whole issue around that this is still kind of a medical situation, and everyone has the right to, just have this conversation with their doctor. So at what point do we, we're wanting to fight for states' rights, but at what point do we have to say, okay, this is for the individual again? So I understand.
I think, let me just say this. I think simply the access and the right to abortion itself. I mean, this is why the issue is so heavy, or so igniting, essentially, is that, it's like telling a 17-year-old, you're not allowed to go drive your car anymore. We're moving the driving age to 19. Okay. And so all of a sudden you're going to have all these young people who, are in the stage of life where you struggle to respect your elders and your authorities and your laws anyway, right? That's your job when you're 19 to 20, 21 is to challenge and question, why are the norms here that we have? And so, we've got to be understanding that we're now taking something which has just been an assumption, and we're jerking it out. And now granted, I don't care as far as, the effect of that. I mean, it's like if I were to give a cell phone to one of my kids and they were to text with it and drive, I don't care. The phone's, you don't get the phone anymore. You might not get to drive anymore. And it's going to be inconvenient for me. Think about that. Like if I had to do that with one of my children, it becomes inconvenient for me. And now things are complicated. And so let's not be dumb that this is going to be very complicated. Now, y'all, I think it could be very beautiful too. I just say, every year in the state of Georgia, I think I haven't looked at the statistics for last year, but there's 27,000 voluntary abortions. And, you think about, I think used to, what was that like? That's how many people Phillips Arena would hold, or something like that.
Roughly, yes.
Yeah, something like that. So imagine annually that those many children came into our state. In 65, 70 years, those many people were retired and flourishing. I mean, and of course we always talk about the people who've lost their lives that might have been the next president or might have invented, the cure for cancer. I mean, there's this heart-wrenching story of the what could have been with the children that were murdered. So it's beautiful to think that protection is going to come down from this. But let us not be fools to think that we don't have tons of other work and so many other areas to deal with the issue.
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. That it's going to create a need for a lot of responsible legislation that you had put up, that you had mentioned earlier, especially at the state level when if this opinion comes out the way it is and it reverts back to the states. Mm-hmm. It's going to be incumbent upon the states to take this and to really make sure that everything is done correctly as far as being providing these services and providing the alternative for it, providing the infrastructure in place to help to promote and to create thriving areas for these mothers. So it's really going to create. You're absolutely correct. There is a lot of work ahead.
It has to be crafted
Absolutely.
with care, and this is one of those things to where it's so impactful that this can't be a campaign thing. Yes. It can't be one of those things to where we see it all the time. Bills come through or delayed because of someone wants to get reelected or things of that nature. This is something that we have to make sure is crafted with care. Mm-hmm. And that, however long it takes to get it right, that it's not done until it's right.
But there needs to be that focus on that issue as well.
Absolutely.
It can't be something that...
It has to be highlighted that they do it.
Yes. Yep. It can't be something where we know this is going to take... we know there are a lot of care has to be placed on this. So we're just going to slow roll it. That cannot be
it's not slow rolling. It's
a lot of these things are slow rolling.
Well, what I'm saying is
especially the CRT issue.
We have to make sure that as citizens, that we're there to advocate consistently, but be mindful of the fact that this isn't
an
overnight fix.
Yeah. This isn't constitutional carry. You know what I mean? This is right because we got to get through.
Yeah.
I want to tell y'all real quick because I don't know what you're going to ask if you want to know this, and we're probably almost up with time. But I want to tell you a really quick factoid about all of this. So I had the privilege of suing an abortion doctor in Atlanta several years ago. I've gotten to have some, I don't want to call it fun litigation, but lawsuits can be very interesting. Of course, they need to be legitimate, not just fishing. Mm-hmm. But I was in this lawsuit with this abortion doctor, and the abortion company called in an expert witness. You were talking about expert on the issue, mm-hmm. And so this guy comes in. Willie Parker was his name. You should Google this guy. And at the time, Mr. Parker was the I think he was like the director of Planned Parenthood, Washington, D.C., but he was also clinical director for an abortion clinic like in Illinois. And he also moonlighted as a medical director for an abortion clinic either in Louisiana or Mississippi. And he was an expert witness to come in and talk about this abortion that we were suing over. And I took his deposition and I said, Dr. Parker, in a year, let's say, how many abortions do you perform in a year? And he was real cagey about it and blah, 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 blah. And eventually I got him to admit that he believed he did about 7,000 abortions a year.
God. Wow.
And so then I said, well, Mr. Parker, you agree, Dr. Parker, you agree that you have a patient doctor relationship. Isn't that what we hear, that, this is a patient doctor relationship, and these women are making these decisions with the advice and care of a caring physician. Oh, yes. He says, I care about every single one of my patients. And I said, so after the abortion, so this would be surgical abortions, 7,000 surgical abortions. I said, after you perform the surgery, how many follow-up visits do you have with your patients? Because every surgery I've had, I had a follow-up visit with my doctor.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Especially such a intimate, important decision that was so hard to make, right? And you're such a great doctor. And he hemmed and hawed, and I have a copy of the deposition. It's unbelievable. And eventually he admitted, quote, maybe 10.
Wow.
7,000 surgeries that he would have a follow-up appointment with a client. And then I asked him, I said, and let me guess, you would only see those 10 because of some kind of medical complication. And he said, yeah. And so go back to, what am I looking forward to when the decision on Roe versus Wade comes out is that guy cannot be in business anymore. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's, I think we're very clear on who this mostly affects, which is those industries and those abortion mills. And so I don't, to go back to what you said, Justin, about the slow roll, and I'm not going to soften it. In Georgia, the response we get every year on pro-life legislation, ideas and proposals is this like, well, should we do a pro-life bill this year? I'm like, well, shouldn't all legislation be pro-life? Like, not pro-abortion. And so if Roe versus Wade, if overturning Roe versus Wade in one fell swoop makes it harder for Willie Parkers of the world to roll from state to state in their first class seats, and do the math, 7,000 abortions times, I don't know. And 10 years ago, a woman would have to pay $475 for an abortion at 13 weeks in Atlanta. And anyway, the Willie Parkers of the world are going to be impacted by this decision. Yeah. And I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Poor guys. I'll shed a tear for them tonight.
There's some things I probably shouldn't say on the show, but people like that, you're absolutely right. People like that are the main reason why things like this have to be changed.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, Miss Emily, I want to say thank you for coming on and sharing some of your insight and your wisdom on this issue, and we sincerely appreciate that. And I just have one more thing that I would like to ask just real fast. Is there anything coming up in the next year that Georgia Right to Life is really kind of focusing on that they're wanting to get done? In the
Georgia Life Alliance. Georgia
Life Alliance. Sorry.
And Georgia Right to Life is also a pro-life group. But
yes, Georgia Life Alliance. Is there anything that y'all are focusing on specifically that y'all would like to see done?
I appreciate you asking that question. I mean, obviously the grant program I told you about, Positive Alternatives, is the name of it. And, the state of like Florida puts, $20+ million a year into a similar program. The state of Texas puts $40 million into a similar program. Georgia, the fastest growing state in the nation, right, should have 10, 15, $20 million going into this program every year to be dispensed through truly caring, service providing pro-life nonprofits. So I always want to see more money go into that program and out of the hands of pro-choice or abortion referral type medical providers. Obviously the legislation that'll come pounding after Roe versus Wade. And, Jamie, you mentioned adoption earlier, and our organization is not we don't do adoption policy and all that, but one of the things I see in the Georgia statutes today is the lack of interface between the laws. And so it would be good for some lawmakers to take the month of November and look closely at our laws and say, with potential more deliveries in our state, because women are not aborting their babies. What can we do to make parenting or putting unwanted children in the hands of loving parents easier? Things like that. But like I said, I think we are preparing. Georgia Life Alliance is preparing that with Roe versus Wade overturned. That the most immediate effect, I will say this, and just to take it back, is that currently today, the heartbeat bill, which was passed a couple of years ago, is enjoined in litigation. So that means it's not been enforced. So immediately effective. We don't have a law in Georgia that will be what's called triggered to ban all abortions upon the decision of Roe versus Wade. So the first thing that's going to happen is that the laws that are in existence become that lawsuit will be mooted essentially. And so the heartbeat bill will be put into place and enforced. the 20-week fetal pain bill that was passed several years ago really was upheld on a thumbnail of sovereign immunity law. And so that one, I guess, the heartbeat bill kind of shortcuts that and makes it even more enforceable, like a stronger law, a larger prohibition. But I think that, we have to stop, like I said, and talk to our medical friends and say, what is the law that we craft that will further restrict, voluntary terminations of pregnancy? And of course, y'all, I mean, I don't deny it. We have to grapple with the question of what about the situations of rape and incest? How do we define medical emergency or medical need if a woman is being told by her physician, you either need to, voluntarily terminate your pregnancy. I have a child trying to get in the screen here, or you're going to have to pick their life over yours, and that happens. So anyway, super complicated. Sorry to talk so long, but
no, this is great.
No, this is awesome.
Thoughts. So
Well,
this is live. What? They're interviewing me.
Oh crap.
That's one of those lovely children that came into the world.
Oh, that's the best. That's the best.
So
thank you for joining us. Thank you so much.
And everything y'all are doing with the Georgia Life Alliance. I mean, y'all, everything's doing great. Y'all look like y'all are doing great work. Yeah. And I'm going to put that back up on the screen again.
Awesome.
And to learn how to get more involved with it, please go to GeorgiaLifeAlliance.com. It's a wealth of knowledge. You really gain a lot of information by going through that.
We gotta let Emily go be a mom.
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
Thanks, y'all. Good night.
Thank you for coming on with us.
Have a good night.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you, Emily, for that. And as always, that was truly enlightening.
That was awesome.
and giving us all the information behind that.
Truly thank you, Emily, for joining us.
It's a very unique perspective she's able to bring for this. So as we talked about earlier, we want to really get into one of the most, probably something that's almost as controversial as this ruling itself,
as the ruling of Roe v. Wade being overturned.
Absolutely, and that is the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why we're even able to have this conversation right now.
Yeah. So what we're referring to is what led to, as you could see, the uproar on both sides, us in joy, they're in pain, of, the leak of the ruling, or it's not ruling yet, technically, because they haven't made the final ruling. It's a draft opinion.
Yes.
About Roe v. Wade being overturned. No one knows yet who leaked it. No one knows, really who, because everything else is kind of almost self-explanatory.
Well, yes, and to be perfectly clear, and for legal reasons, everything that you would hear going forward about this issue is nothing more than Jamie's and I's opinion and things that we've put together over the time that we have kind of been paying attention to this and reading into.
Yeah, and reading. We get the same information that you do.
Yes,
yeah, we get the same. I get mine from Fox.
The voices in my head tell me.
Oh,
so
there's three of us, and we don't listen to each other. So
that's your fault. So, all right. So let's get exactly into who this potentially could have came from. So, my mind, in my opinion, and this is just based upon the understanding of how the court works in this regard, and the understanding of the procedures with this, and kind of reading into a lot of the things that are going on with upcoming events, things that are getting ready to take place with that. And one of those being that Justice Breyer is getting ready to leave the Supreme Court, and he's being placed by we can't say it's a she because we're not biologists,
and she doesn't know what a woman is.
Well,
so
you can't call it she.
What?
Because you're not.
They don't know what they don't know what a woman is.
the persons sitting in this room at this table do not know what that person that's getting ready to sit.
I can't do this anymore. That's too complicated. The new lady.
Can't call her lady.
She was born biologically a female. I'm not getting into this kind of.
So we're doing sex, not gender.
I literally helped start this show to get away from doing what we just did. So the African American woman who will be taking this seat
How
and
dare you?
I
How
will say
dare
this. I
you?
will say this. Like, for that, claps. You know what I mean? For being the first African American woman on the Supreme Court. You know, I'm not going to agree with anything that she says, but claps. Okay, that's done. Secondly, I think he leaked it as he's leaving.
I think it was one of his clerks with his knowledge, with his wink and pat on the back, because frankly, he has no more. He has
No more
no more
loyalty.
dog in the fight. He had no more dogs in this fight, and he is a very liberal leaning judge. He has really taken that side a lot, and quite frankly, there's no reason for him not to at that point.
He has nothing to lose.
Exactly.
And that's the, in my opinion, that's why I kind of think that it was, an authorized, and I would never say that about a justice, a presumably authorized release from a law clerk, because in a situation like that, just like everyday people in their job, when they either about to quit, they put in their notice, they, their care and loyalty to the organization falls down. Their demeanor changes, and for something like this, to where, as you said, he has been very passionate against our opinion on this. That's something I see as probable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we've told you the who. Now let's get into the what. What exactly was leaked? So this leak was not just this is what they were saying in the back rooms, because even Justice Ginsburg said that those who talk don't know, and those who know don't talk.
Yep.
This is the talk of the ones that know, because this is an actual draft opinion. It was certified a draft opinion by Chief Justice Roberts as well. He said this is the actual opinion that's being drafted and passed around with the actual votes and the actual numbers. This is at the moment, this is exactly what.
In 2 months, this is probably the ruling.
Essentially, yes, if it doesn't change. And that rolls into the why this was leaked.
So I have another opinion on this too, and I've really I've done a little bit of not just digging into this, but we both talked about graduate school, what we do in graduate school, and in my research for a lot of law schools, you're starting to find out that a lot of law schools have been entrenched and become entrenched in this left-leaning ideology. To the point,
law schools,
every school, but I mean, like this particular matter, as it refers to law schools, is very kind of troubling in my opinion, because when you start thinking about law schools and you start thinking about upholding the Constitution and the values of being a lawyer and understanding the value and the difference of opinion while still trying to find the truth, right? There is this new ideology of fearfulness that we're the same progressive fear-mongering tactics that we've seen are starting to be embedded in the law school, to where you're having these law schools try to bring in speakers, and then the students are chanting things like Black Lawyers Matter in the middle of like these lectures, whereas beforehand, that's not something that, regardless of whether you disagreed with the adjunct professor's opinion or not, you just didn't do that. You can have an open disagreement and an open discussion about the difference of opinions, but to cause pure disruption, and then one thing that I saw that even troubled me even more was these same students who were chanting Black Lawyers Matter had written on the concrete in front of their law building things like, "We are the law." So when I start thinking about this, and you know what I mean? Like, being in politics, there's there are lawmakers and there are those who, argue the opinion of, and that is essentially in actuality, the law outside the written text. Those three components make up the law. So when these people start going out there and, they're now going in with biased opinions into a courtroom, right? Which is a whole nother argument. But that is it's very fearful. in my opinion. I think that's why, you know, you get a young law clerk in there. If they went to NYU or something like that, they're probably in the justice office right now anyway. If you went to George Mason, you're probably in the justice office anyway. And if you're out here screaming "Black lawyers matter," no one like, what is that?
Yeah. So I have a little bit more of a, I guess you would say, a conflicting or very troubling thought process on that. I actually think this was leaked in an effort to change the justices' minds and to really scare the just like you were saying, to scare the justices into fearing their lives that if they were to overturn this or come out with the opinion that they have on this, that they would die or their family members would be harmed. And we saw that this is extremely possible when, as soon as this article was leaked, barricades started being erected around the Supreme Court building. We saw the majority leader for the Senate when Kavanaugh was being sworn in or was being confirmed, stand out on the front porch or the front steps of the Supreme Court building and literally call a presumptive Supreme Court justice nothing more than a gang rapist. I mean, these people are in it to win it, and they're in it to win it through fearful tactics and and intimidation.
Yeah, like it's like when, you know, I guess, you know, we kind of talk about this probably all the time. Like when I started coming up in politics and things, there were just certain things that you just didn't do. You know what I mean? There was a creed of some sort, like, you know what I mean? When all actuality it was only in our heads, you know. That is what we are starting to see dissipate on a federal level, because you know just as well as I do, from the founding fathers beginning, the Supreme Court was the one thing that no one messed with.
It was supposed to be, yes.
It was supposed to be separated out. Like, we could squabble in the House and the Senate for the executive branch, and then whoever party was in charge of the executive branch, then it was just, you know, that was the difference between the two. Because a lot of times, as you can see and will always see, and you can even see this across the states, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just find it ironic. It's a little sidebar. I find it ironic that when we start talking about Roe v. Wade and all this other kind of stuff, you start looking at the abortion laws that are on the books. And one thing that was very interesting was you have trending blue states like Michigan, who they may vote on a federal level blue, but they are majority red when it comes to their House representatives. And they still have on the books a law from like the 1800s about abortion.
Yeah.
So like when Roe v. Wade is finally reappealed and they go back to this 1850 law, you know what I mean? And then you got, you know, conservatives in power, you know, you're like, why are you arguing? You did, like, you know what I mean? You all did this, you know, like, this is what you wanted.
Yeah.
This is what you said you wanted. This is what you're voting for. You know, so I don't understand what the argument in a lot of people's mind is. This is a states' right issue. They can go back to their states, how it's supposed to be from the beginning.
Absolutely.
And then the majority of the states vote, as we should, on what our values are in our state when it comes to things like abortion, healthcare, everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that, and right about that. And it's also interesting to note the last two aspects of this whole questioning of a story and the newsworthiness of the story is the where and the when. So the where being where this was leaked out to. This was leaked out to Politico, which is notoriously a very left-leaning news outlet. I mean, it was not leaked out to the like the Washington Post. It was not leaked out to the New York Post, or the Wall Street Journal. Any of those things, any of the actual, I guess you could say, institutional bases for news. It was linked out to a very left-leaning news outlet, and that just goes to tell you on the other side that this was done intentionally by a liberal-minded person for the express reason of making sure that the left knows all about this and what's going on, which also leads greatly into the when aspect of it, because I think this is the most telling part of it. The most telling part of it being the timeliness of when this was leaked, because midterms just right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
This was done in an effort to not only to intimidate the justices, to hopefully flip their opinion out of the fear of their lives, but to rally the base.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they rally the base, they can maintain the House and the Senate and keep Joe Biden, will keep old sleepy, creepy Joe up there in the White House, and continue another 4 years of this liberal policy or another 2 years, this very liberal policy making that they're doing.
That's it. Honestly, Justin, that's an aspect of this I didn't think about. I thought about, different angles of this, but when you take into account what you just said, this was done, the week of and the week before a lot of primaries.
Especially the one in Ohio.
And it's especially when you start looking at the fact that a lot of people aren't realizing this. And, a lot of people aren't realizing this. The traditional polls have continually shown to be wrong. And Ohio, as we found out, throughout this week, is shown that, the Trump endorsement's a lot stronger than a lot of people were originally trying to, tote it as. And so I'm thinking that you're absolutely right. This was an idea for them to try to rally their base because they didn't have another option.
Nope. Yeah. They're not only were they trying to do that, but they were trying to rally support in an effort to codify abortion legally at the federal level and supersede states' rights ahead of this, to get ahead of this ruling that was coming out, which within minutes of this coming out, they already had legislation written up and ready to hit the floor in the Senate.
Yeah, I know. I heard about that nonsense.
But the funny thing about that is last summer, the House actually passed pieces of legislation that federalized abortions and made them legal up until the day of birth. So why the Senate even had to do this? Because there was already legislation out there. They knew that they could not get the votes necessary in the Senate to get over the filibuster and to basically get past cloture. So they had to do this in an effort to nuke the filibuster. And by nuking the filibuster, they can then come back in and pack the courts.
And it's an attempt to it. But I don't think that, and I read something yesterday that made me really believe this even more. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. And part of that is because fingers crossed. Part of that is because of this. A lot of that, it's hard to think that they're not all at that far left progressive, right? But your extreme progressive Democratic members they have put up candidates in other states for their primaries, and those candidates are losing on their side too. And so I think with that, you're going to see another bust in the Senate because some of those Democrats who are, not that progressive are trying to, they still believe in the filibuster.
Well, I can honestly say that I sincerely hope that you are right about that, because this is the issue. This is the left's Second Amendment.
This is their Alamo.
Well, not just that. This is their Second Amendment. This is their version of the Second Amendment for conservatives.
Yeah.
They are willing to fight and, if necessary, violently and kill for this issue.
Yeah.
Literally, because they've been killing for the past 50, 60 years, the killing the unborn. So this is an issue that they are willing to kill for. And just like conservatives with the Second Amendment, we're willing to fight to the death for that. This is something that they're willing to do for that.
And I do want to make this right too. Like there's a lot of discussion about this. The reversal of Roe v. Wade is like, no one, I think they try to dehumanize us when they start talking about, oh, well, what if this situation, or what if this scenario, or what if this were to happen? No one is really, like these hypotheticals, that everyone is discussing is not the issue.
It's that is the 0.0001% of all.
Correct. I think everyone is on the same page when it comes to, like, there are situations to where there are complications, and if something were to happen, and they're trying to save the mother and they save the mother, that's a hypothetical that I think that people like try to dig us down into. That's not a reality.
No.
The reality is that life begins at conception. And the moment that child is conceived is the moment that life has begun, and that needs to be protected.
Yes.
Period.
Absolutely.
Period.
I agree
If
with you
things
100%.
happen just like in everyday life, you know what I mean? In everyday life, it's sad enough, but from natural causes or other things, kids die as well as adults, as well as young age people.
We are never guaranteed
We're
tomorrow.
never guaranteed tomorrow.
Mhm.
But that life at all phases needs to be protected. Whether it's the 80-year-old person who is sitting in a nursing home who can't remember anything, you know what I mean? Their life needs to be protected, as well as the child who was just conceived for whatever reason needs to be protected.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you on that one. So now let's get into we're going to take a left and a right, and then another left-hand turn,
And then dig a little.
Yeah, exactly, and then bring out the shovel some, and really kind of get into an issue that you're starting to see pop up, not just in the darkest parts of the of the internet, but in mainstream as well, and that's the notion that there is a direct correlation between what we're seeing going on in the world as far as the food shortages that we're experiencing and these food processing plants catching fire and burning down.
Yeah. So
give me your thoughts on that one real fast.
As a very close friend of mine likes to say, I too have a closet full of collected tinfoil hats. And so sometimes like I have to, be cautious, because when I start seeing the things that I'm seeing and have been seeing, like my mind literally goes to, okay, what's the correlation between these, and how, like, can I connect the dots, right? Because if I can connect the dots, something's there. Whether it may not be
where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, it may not.
No pun intended.
It may not be the correlation that I was initially going for, but there's a correlation there. So when Joe Biden gets up there and says, "Everybody get ready for a food shortage," and then within 2 weeks, you got 8 to 10 food processing plants that catch on fire for various reasons. Okay. My mind is saying something's up, because that's not right. Something's there. I got to see who owns those companies. I got to see what shareholders they have in common if they're public. You know what I mean? Like and then since we're on the rabbit hole, I got to go with it.
So it's something that we're going to have to do is, we were told that we needed kind of the hook and the niche.
Yeah.
We're in the future, we're going to have a tinfoil hat that we're going to hang from right here back behind there. And then when we start going down these rabbit holes, we're just going to take it. I'm going to hand it to you. You're going to hand it to me, and we're going to proudly put it on and say, all right, let's do this.
What's funny is people who know us think that you are more into conspiracy theories than I am, but really it's me.
On this one, I will say on this one.
Now, some of them, so some of them I really do like.
So now with me on this issue, I see it actually stemming back more towards the issue that we're seeing in a lack of skilled laborers. And when I say in skilled laborers, I mean in the trades, pipe fitting, welding, manufacture, it just in general, that sort of deal, because there has been, since I believe at least the information I was able to find, going back to 2019, there has been a record increases in manufacturing and processing plant fires.
Yeah,
actually upwards of over 150% increase just in the first quarter of 2021 alone. So that's simply because we have a dying or a retiring off generation of people who have years of experience in maintaining these processing plants, these manufacturing plants, maintaining this equipment, keeping it running correctly, and they're gone. But we have no one to replace them. So yes, of course they're going to fall in disrepair. You're going to start seeing these breakdowns. You're going to start seeing all of this. I honestly doubt that there is somebody that's walking around with a Zippo from
that's not what
Ukraine or Russia and lighting everything up. But I think it's sincerely going back to our thoughts and our application of pushing college over trade.
So I will put I will take my tinfoil hat off for a second.
Uh-oh.
And I will say that makes a lot of logical sense, because for a while now, you're a little bit older than I am, but I went to college. I'm saying that when I started college is because you really had no other option outside of going to the military. And
Could have gone and been a welder. Welders make
what I'm
now.
saying is when I started college, it was 2009. There were no jobs.
Okay, fair enough.
You know what I mean? Like if you
college was Biden time.
It was stay at home, or go to college. And so that is an option, and we've seen that growing trend from 2006 through 2012, that whole span of where it was like only send kids to college, forget trade schools. And you're starting to see that gap really emerge, because you have a whole generation of these professionals in trade, and you're seeing it across the board, from manufacturing to building to welding to everything, that there's a gap. And then those who are filling the gap are making money hand over fist, but they're exhausted because they're working 4 or 5 days off, 18-hour shifts. You know what I mean? So I understand that there could be fires related to that, because when you get somebody who's working 12-hour shifts and they do a little overtime, accidents happen. And as a lot of my friends and family work in some of these factories, that's just one of not in food processing, but in in manufacturing, it's a trend. Okay. And put my hat back on though, because when I correlate that we're getting empty shipping containers because Joe Biden didn't want to finish the trade war, and then Joe Biden comes in and tells us that we're going to have a food shortage, and part of that is because some of these materials and things that we're getting for some of these plants are coming in from China, and China's sending us empty containers with none of this stuff contained in it. I just start imagining these undercover agents going in and setting these places on fire. That's just me. Had to get that out because it's really been bugging me.
There have been very few times in my life where I have been rendered 100% speechless, and that was one of them.
Hey, man.
Bravo.
It really irks me. Chinese ops, man, they freak me out.
Woo, a little bit further down the rabbit hole than I anticipated. I mean,
well, as you can tell,
we went so deep, we're almost in China.
As you can tell, this conspiracy theory really eats at me, which is what. And for those of you who don't know, I made Justin put it on the show.
Literally, when we were discussing show topics, he said, "We're doing this." I said, "Well, come on." He said, "I'm invoking my half."
Yeah,
we're doing this.
Yep. Usually I'm good with, I'm very easy. I'm good with every topic that we can go with. This one was a must because I think there's something there. And though I will agree, it's probably 85% is 95% is probably what Justin's thinking. It's just the changeover in labor. And you know what I mean? It really is just the cycle of manufacturing, because, one thing you didn't add is when you cycle through that too, you got to add in the change in, more human labor plus the robotics and things like that are being added into it. So when you add in, new labor, people working new machines coming online, that causes issues. And I'd rather it be fires than more people losing arms and limbs like you see in auto manufacturing, because that's more of what's happening there. But they were able to switch to robotics early. I digress. Still. Just finish the trade war, Joe. Just finish the trade war. We wouldn't have these problems. If we go back to finishing the trade war, we wouldn't have these food processing problems or empty shipping containers being sent to us, or we wouldn't have,
just no shipping containers at all, because
we wouldn't
shut back down because of their latest round of COVID.
We wouldn't have these deficits that we're getting ready to have. We wouldn't we just went up 0.5% on 50. This is the largest rate increase in 50 years.
Yes.
The only, and I've mentioned this before, the only reason why you do something like this is when you're driving a recession, and because the only way to stop hyperinflation and drive down inflation is to drive a recession, because you have to have everything else drop in value. So,
and what's the best way to get out of a recession? War.
it is. It is. And see, you're going to make me go down another rabbit hole, because I think that's why we haven't gone in yet.
Well,
I think that's why we're sending.
There are Republican members of Congress that are trying to pass legislation that would push us into one, or at least back us into a corner where we have no other alternative.
Since we're here and I got a couple seconds, I think all of it's part of the same. Okay. And here's why. You have three major things going on right now. One, you have Russia that just came off the dollar standard. All right. That's a no-no. Everybody else who's come off the dollar standard in the in the world has been knocked out real quick. Okay. That's the first step. The second step is when you start talking about cryptocurrencies, and we hadn't really got dabbled in that right now. The only way to show if an asset is really viable is to stress test it. Okay. So the best way to stress test a new currency, like you would stress test fiat currency, or like the Great Britain stress test gold, is to go to war. Right. Ethereum is backed. It is based in Russia, right? So that's a whole other rabbit hole that I'm not going down. All right.
We'll have to do an entire show on that one.
Dude. Also, when you start looking at the things that Putin came in first on, like, I started connecting these dots the moment that they started going towards Chernobyl first. Out of all the areas that they could have gone in, they went straight for the nuclear power plant, right? Because if I'm trying to run, a massive server room, right, that, as we've seen, cryptocurrency will crash and burn on your servers if they're not kept cool. Only way to do that is through nuclear power. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to take, if I need to run a world currency off of computers and do a whole digital asset processor, is off of nuclear power. The second part of this to me is when the woke, right, really screwed us over. Because when they came in and had all these companies come in and try to take everything out, and Visa and MasterCard pulled out, as good as that is as a citizen, right? Thank you for being a strong American. But what you did, though, is you just now tied Russia and China together, because China's now backing all of Russia's debit cards, right? Second play. Because then when they're tied together, right, they're going to see what we do. Because if we go in and save Ukraine, China's going to go in and attack Taiwan, and then we're split both ways, which is why at the same time that we start talking about NATO going in and helping, China said, you all send any person of leadership, doesn't matter if it's a representative, speaker of the House, anybody, to Taiwan, you have violated China's because that's their play. Because at some point, if one of them fails or not, they're going to be one. They're going to be the northern Asian continent. And they're tying their finances together. They're tying everything else. They get Ukraine, they get the resources. It gets messy. Sorry.
Yes. I love it. What can I say? I love it. But unfortunately, we do have a time constraint on this.
We might have to do part 2 in the future.
Yes, and that actually kind of rolls into what we're looking at doing moving forward. If we're able to get enough sponsors and we're able to really take this to the next level, next step, and that is where we could actually start bringing more content and longer versions of it. We can continue, or we can start really striving towards getting more done and better production and really reaching more people with this. But and again, that all goes back to coming and going to the website conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab at the top right hand corner and contributing what you're able to and helping us out with that. But as always, we always like to end the show by asking everyone to like, share, and like and share all the content that you see that we produce and put out there. Subscribe to all of our platforms and pages. And again, please go to that to the website there and click the sponsor tab to help really fund and finance the 2022 Red Surge.
Absolutely. And, as another reminder, as we always love to do, 17 days until the Republican primary here in Georgia. So make sure you get out there and vote. And then 187 days until we beat Stacey Abrams again. I'm going to keep doing the drum roll now. Hallelujah.
Yeah, no, we're going to come up with an actual sound effect for that.
See, that's what you're good at. I just like making noises.
But again, thank you for listening to and putting up with our antics and shenanigans with this. And we really enjoyed spending time with you on this one and really kind of bringing you Jamie's mind, showing you the inner workings of Jamie's and my mind, which truly might scare some of you.
Yeah, it's very rare. I put my I take my tenfold. I usually just put them on in the closet.
It's a lot more fun like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, come back next week and we'll bring you some more weird and wacky,
good conservative content.
Exactly. I don't know how else to say that, but thank you.